Hello everyone, Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 43 coming at you. This time we are live in the secret underground bunker, the sub as we like to call it. We are, as I said, in the Kinetic Kids. It's going to have its name changed very soon because of some issues on the interwebs. When we were recording that, we were actually subgrade as well, but today you can see we are subgrade. Right there's some little bit of light. Doubles as a prison cell for my kids, so just don't let them tell you any different.
Do you want to get the feed going in case
anybody
wants to chime in?
So I can actually see what's going on. Oh no, I don't. Do I want to subject myself to that?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. And this is straight vodka that we're drinking. Don't worry about that. It is, it's Monday at 2 o'clock, so 2:15. There's nothing wrong with drinking vodka out of a mason jar, eh?
Not at all.
As you can see me highly technically get set up here. How are we doing? Oh, jeez Louise.
Wow, I have a lot of technical.
Wes and I have been down here in the secret underground bunker today setting things up. We got some whiteboards up for planning sessions, things like that. We got our banner up, got the table, and more stuff to come. TV will be in here at some point, so we can have, hey, there we are. It looks like we're watching. How's my hair look? Not very good today.
Better than mine.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right? I got it. So.
Yeah, that's right.
You got hands, I got hair, so.
Hey, look at that.
Hey, look at that.
Steve.
Oh, Steve, what's happening?
Thanks for joining us. You playing hooky today, Steve?
Right?
Working?
No, he's working. I guarantee he's working. I got the Oregon State Beavers shirt on in honor of their imminent beatdown on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock against the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. What do you think? I think the over-under is 35. I actually got them at 30.
And I want to say I looked last night, I think it's moved to 37.
Oh, of course it has, because why wouldn't it? So,
yeah, exactly.
Well, with all that being said, we're actually going to press play or press record here on the podcast. I'm going to pull my notes up so I know what we're talking about.
Good idea.
Yeah, kind of a good idea. Okay. Well, here we go. We're going to hit record in 3, 2. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. This is Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 43. I am your host, Will, joined as always by my good friend Wes.
Right here I am.
He is to my left. We are in the secret underground bunker. This time for real, subgrade down below in the basement. We've got the office set up. We've got the recording studio set up. We even have a tripod now. We're getting really high tech.
Fancy. Yeah.
We no longer have the camera that we record on propped up on a card table with, I think last week we were using plates or no sheet
tile
pieces of tile.
And before that it was a reel of hose.
Yeah, a reel of hose.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And I think we've used our wooden boxes here as well a few times. So it's nice to settle in, have a place to just walk down the stairs, be able to hit the studio, hit the office, things like that is very, very nice. And Wes and I come down here, do planning sessions, things like that. If you're watching on Facebook Live, we've got some whiteboards behind us that you can see one of them. We're gonna have a TV in here so that we probably actually put the TV maybe at an angle back there, and that way we can
watch the TV while we're watching this.
Yeah, we can see the TV. Yeah, we can have a laser pointer and we can do presentations on it. So yeah, that should be pretty interesting. See how that works, but. As always, we like to have something or talk about something good that happened to us since the last podcast. You want to jump off today?
Yeah, that would be what we did this past weekend at the Garlic Festival up in Chehalis / Centralia, kind of around the border. But lots and lots of garlicious eats. Yes. Is that how you say it? Very pungent. Yeah.
I think that's a very good way to put it because we, do you want to give a little rundown on what we had? For those that weren't watching, we had, I think the highlight for me was probably the jambalaya.
That was good.
We had jambalaya, we had garlic macaroni and cheese.
Which was my favorite.
I didn't get to have that because of the gluten issues or the wheat issues. We had alligator. I found the alligator to be really good.
It was good.
Kim and you both said that, was it you or Tia that said you guys caught a gaminess out of it?
Kim and I were talking about a little bit of gaminess, but not like out of control, just a little mild flavor.
And I didn't pick that up at all.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And so we had that. We had garlic sausage, garlic fries. What else do we have?
Deep fried garlic cloves.
Deep fried garlic cloves. I didn't get to try those. What did you think of those?
Those are good. Very good.
Those were good. The jambalaya. We had garlic shrimp. That was really good.
Yeah.
And these guys, it looked like they were actually came over from Hawaii. They had an 808 area code, as Wes pointed out when we were walking through. But yeah, if anyone gets a chance next year to check it out, if you like garlic, do not try the garlic cotton candy. That was quite possibly one of the worst things I've ever eaten in my entire life.
It was not a favorite. Garlic butter elephant ears.
Yes.
One. Yeah.
Now that was kind of like a garlic breadish.
It tasted like garlic bread, basically, yeah.
And then you had the cinnamon sugar one to kind of balance it out.
Old school one, yeah. And then one thing that at least Annabelle, my daughter, and I liked, but nobody else did, is the garlic ice cream. I didn't think that was bad because it was all vanilla ice cream with little bits of garlic clove churned into it.
Mm-hmm. It was roasted garlic too, I believe. I don't think it wasn't.
And it was good because you had the heavy duty vanilla ice cream flavor, and every once in a while just a little kick of garlic in there.
Maybe it was that mine was different than yours because I found the first two to be interesting, and it wasn't a bad flavor. I will say that the ice cream was very high quality ice cream, and it was creamy. It was really good. First two bites, this is interesting. It's not something I'm going to do a lot. By the third or fourth bite, no bueno. It was shut down time. I gave Kim a bite of it, and she gave me the look of death, and so I was like, well, she's not going to want any more of that. But no, it wasn't that. But I will say I would eat 18 gallons of the ice cream over ever having one more bite of that cotton candy.
Yeah.
As soon as that popped into my mouth, I immediately wanted to almost hurl. It was really bad.
Yeah.
I just...
And the garlic kettle corn was really good too. We got that on the way out the door.
Now that had like garlic salt on it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it tasted like just a garlic butter kind of flavor on your popcorn, basically is what it was. So
yeah, it was... Derek and we got some for Derek and Jude, and they really liked it. It was pretty salty, but I will say, again, I'll go back to the jambalaya. That is, some of the best, if not the best, I've ever had in my life. I would like to see some shrimp in it. That was the only change, but other than that, it was outstanding. And the sausage was good.
Yes, it was.
The sausage was great. The garlic fries are awesome. And beyond the food, the festival itself, they had all kinds of knick-knack stuff and
tons
furniture.
Of like antique vendors and food vendor. Little prepackaged food items, not the actual garlic stuff itself. That was on the main midway drag. But.
Yeah, exactly. And then they had the jars of garlic, and they had a live band.
Yep.
And that band, when we walked by them, they were like a rock funk type thing, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
They were jamming, and they were really cool. So it was all in all, it was, and for $5 to get in, it was a steal. And you kind of got the fair aspect of it without all the clowns and the carnies and the rides and things like that, which I kind of appreciate.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say for my good thing that happened to me since we last recorded was that I got couches in the house. I know that I'm going to use yours as kind of a one-off, but for me, we got couches, and so now we can actually sit. And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
To be able to actually sit in the living room that's not on a lawn chair, that's a giant bonus for me. And to get everything else that was in the storage thing over here was pretty nice to be settling in and whatnot. Again, happy to be back in Washougal, the old homestead, and that's all very exciting. So, but we do have a good news story as well, and this is that Pink, the singer, she stopped a concert to hug a girl that had just lost her mom.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. This was in Australia just a few days ago. There was a 14-year-old girl in the crowd who had made a sign and held it up, saying that I just lost my mom a few days ago, and I could use a hug or something like that. Basically, what the sign said. And so the people surrounding her all saw the sign, and so they're all waving at Pink and trying to get her to look at the sign. Everybody's trying to grab Pink's attention, have her look at this girl, and she finally looked over and saw her. And so after she finished the song, she stopped and walked out to the end of the stage and jumped down in the audience.
No, she jumped down.
And gave this girl a hug and took pictures with her, like right in the middle. Yeah, stopped the concert, just hung out with this girl for a few seconds, and then so that was a really cool deal.
That is very neat. That's when you don't see that kind of stuff very often, especially from the star the size of Pink. To go down in the crowd, actually, that's kind of a risky maneuver as well. To go down there and subject yourself to who knows what, especially at the front of the concert there. So let's jump right into the hot sheet here. There's our first jump into, I love that. This is the sad story yesterday of the mass shooting there. Of 3 people in Jacksonville, including the shooter?
I think, they originally said like 4, and I think they downwardly revised that. So 2 fatalities, and then the shooter also took his own life after all was said and done. And all this stemming from a video game tournament. How incredibly senseless and stupid is that? What it was a Madden 19, which is a football game you play on different platforms, and they had it was like a final tournament, so they had like winners from each state, and they flew there to do a tournament. And this one guy, he's 24 years old, from Baltimore, lost in one of the rounds, and he just flipped out and pulled the gun and started opening fire just because he lost the video game.
Why did he have a gun there?
Right.
I mean, how did he get it in? I guess they're probably not going to run him through a metal detector and whatnot as a participant, but how incredibly sad. And we see, we've seen for many years the build-up, I think, kind of as kids, and I know my kids with video games, they try to get upset with them, and you see people throwing remotes and things like that, and this is just taking it to the nth degree. But I put a clamp on that real quick, because we need to understand that this is just a video game.
Yep.
And I know folks take that stuff seriously, especially I'm sure there's probably pretty good money on it.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
And I've seen some of those e-gaming tournaments, and I mean, they make this quite the spectacle, and they make it a much bigger deal than it is, because they're trying to get whether it's the NBA or something like that, a feel of people really excited and whatnot. But when you have something like this where somebody is taking it that seriously, and taking it to something that they're not, it's reality is completely distorted. They don't understand that, maybe they do, but they just don't want to. They're so upset and engulfed with rage because they lose at a video game. That we won't even get into the gun part of it. That's the mental status of somebody that is not accepting loss, hasn't learned how to deal with those kinds of things in life. Right. And these are life skills that we're talking about, let alone just the fact that they would take 2 other people's lives and their own. Right. I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. And as we continue on in the hot sheet, another bad story with the Catholic Church, and the abuse scandals continue to mount up for them. Yeah,
this is something you hear in the news, seems pretty frequently these days. And this one's got a little more serious nature to it. Not that the other ones weren't serious, but this is involving some high-ranking cardinals, and now there's speculation that the Pope himself knew about it, and that he tried to cover it up and keep it hush-hush.
That's trouble.
And so, this is getting pretty big, and there's been a couple religious leaders that are obviously calling for an investigation, and they're saying, if the Pope did in fact know about this, that he needs to resign.
Absolutely. Yeah. He needs to step down.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's whether it's Urban Meyer, whether it's the Pope, any of these scandals that involve sexual nature whatsoever, that's almost as bad as the crime, the cover.
Yep.
We talk about this damn near every episode now. But you see these folks that are more than willing to walk with these guys and cover it up for them. How do they expect it not to at some point come out, especially with the long history that the Catholic Church has had over the last 30 years of these types of scandals coming out?
Yep.
And who knows if they're going to continue or what's going to happen, but it's all in all, it's a terrible, terrible story in general.
Definitely.
So, number 3 here, we got President Trump has decided to tell Mike Pompeo, not the Secretary of State, not to go to North Korea now?
Yeah, so
why is he changing his tune?
They had a scheduled meeting between Pompeo, hello, and some of the North Korean diplomats to continue the ongoing discussion of the denuclearization and potential lifting of sanctions and down the road, all that kind of stuff. And now that it's come to light that they aren't following with the denuclearization plans as scheduled.
Right. But that's so hard to believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't call that one before.
Yeah, exactly.
That Trump told Pompeo, don't go because they're not holding up their end of the bargain. So don't bother going over there to keep talking with them if they're not going to, uphold their end of the bargain. So now, do we slide backwards and devolve back to where we used to be, where it's just a big nuclear stalemate like what we had,
I think
6+ months ago?
I think it's been that path since they left the summit.
Yeah.
We've seen nothing but negative rhetoric come out from both sides, not just Korea, our side as well. Even with this, we're seeing nothing but people, another pissing match.
Yep.
Again, and I don't think that that's going to end anytime soon. And until we get some boots on the ground there to see exactly what's going to happen, I don't think it's going to change.
Right.
And I don't think that North Korea has any intent, unless I guess we start shipping them pallets of cash, or how does that work when they're gonna start to change the way their tune, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Number 4 here, we've got a longtime Trump business exec who it was the CEO of his corporation for a while, correct?
Yeah, and then he was like the lead accountant too.
Okay, yeah. But he's been granted federal immunity?
Yep, and this is part of the whole Manafort deal that they've granted him immunity if he's willing to open up and talk about things. And him being the lead accountant, he supposedly has all the direct knowledge of all the payments, the hush payments that Trump made, all that kind of stuff. All this stuff passed through him so he could keep tabs on it. So with him getting immunity, and if he decides to sing and spill his guts, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of this now.
Well, and I think a lot of times when they go after these types of cases, they follow the money, and they also we're peeling. See, this is another example.
We had a temporary fix. We'll there we go. It's like a waterfall. There we go.
See, you guys didn't.
We'll fix that for next. We'll fix that in post.
Yeah, exactly. But no, as whether it's a drug investigation, we're watching it on the feed now, the crashing of the sign. But you see, whether it's Escobar, whether it was some of the other major drug cartels. What was his name that made the movie? George Young. They went after his money man, and that's how, because they want the records. That's how they're going to indict and end up sending these guys to prison, is they need to have the stuff that's been on paper. And there's no way to not, if you're keeping track of this type of money, you can't keep track of it in your head.
Right, exactly.
Whether it's a drug deal or it's hush money or anything like that. And with drug deals, there's a lot of hush money involved as well. But, these guys sit there and they take huge sums of money in order to, cook the books, if you will, and hide the money, whether it's through shell corporations or whatever it may be. But if they're the ones that get nailed, everyone else is going down. They're kind of the head of the snake, in my opinion, because they've got the keys to Pandora's box, and I have a feeling it's going to get opened here pretty soon.
Yep.
As we segue, as you like to say, as we both like to say. Speaking of Manafort, President Trump is thinking about pardoning him, which I think would be one of the worst optics ever.
Yep, that would be a disaster. So the story that's been floated out there now is from none other than Trump's mouthpiece himself, Rudy Giuliani. He said that Trump recently inquired, looking for advice from his inner circle on whether or not he should maybe think about pardoning Manafort. And the feedback given to him was that he was advised not to do it.
So I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to write out the pros and cons to doing that, I've got to imagine the cons has got to be about 11 miles long.
A little bit longer.
Maybe one in that you can get off if he gives Manafort a pardon.
Right.
It's still going to come out because there's so many different ways. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I was going to say I was going to say exactly what you said right off the bat. It's that just the mere asking about, inquiring about this is definitely bad optics. I mean, why would you even think that you would want to pardon Manafort?
There's no reason. And even, like you said on the last podcast when we were talking about him going down last week, these charges stemmed from issues that were long before the Trump campaign. So even worse, why would you pardon him from that stuff if it has nothing to do with you?
Right.
What's the point of it? So that he can get rung, if he's out, he's going to get rung up on other charges related to the campaign and things like that. Just send him to jail, let him spend his, I think you said the maximum was 80 years.
Right.
Obviously he won't get that, but he's probably in his 50s.
Oh no, Manafort 70.
70?
Yeah, he's quite old. Yeah.
So if he catches 30,
he's done. Yeah.
What's the point of and all you do is you save the citizens our tax money going to another federal prosecution that's going to cost millions of dollars. And I can't see why he would want to do that. If he goes down for this, your secret is kind of safe unless he decides to sing anyway.
Yep.
You can't be saved from what he's already up there for. So, well, it's a flashback follow-up time, and the bloodshed in Chicago continues. And but only one person has been charged. From which weekend was it? Was it this last weekend?
No,
or
it was.
Weekend
It
2
was.
weeks ago?
It was the first weekend of August. So that would have been three weekends ago. Yeah. And we talked about that at the time. There were 75 people shot in one weekend. I believe there are 12 fatalities out of the 75. And in those 3 weeks, they have arrested a grand total of one person.
Wow.
In regards to the 75 shootings. So.
What's the and I continue to ask this because we continue to update it dang near every week. There's no end in sight.
No, and
we had another bad weekend this week.
Yeah, you sent me the article, and then prior to you sending me the article, on Saturday morning, I read an update that just on Friday night in Chicago, there were like 17 shootings on Friday night. So I mean, we're getting like 24 shootings. More than that, like on a Friday night, it's every weekend. We're getting like 2 to 3 dozen shootings every single weekend.
That's incredible,
and it's not slowing down.
What I found kind of it's not funny or anything like that. Was Dana Loesch, the lead counsel for the NRA, said something, actually tweeted something in this this blogger, food critic type person from Chicago. Started telling her what, she was going to rot in prison and rot in hell and all this stuff. And it's like, you're from Chicago, you see all these massive issues that they have. Why don't we have some kind of positive discussion about how you can impact that as somebody who has a voice in the city?
Yeah.
You're telling everyone about the great croissants at some corner bistro. That's great, but you're going to sit there and tell somebody that you wish they were dead, and you're in Chicago, and I don't know. I hate that they continue to do that, and they continue to say things like that. If you look, I read her Twitter feed, and it's all like that: a croissant at this bistro, and the mac and cheese at this place, and then rotten hell, Dana Loesch. And I don't care if you have an issue with the NRA. That's fine. You're more than welcome to that, but wishing death upon somebody or rotten prison, and I don't know what Dana Loesch would be brought up on charges for, but saying that kind of thing to anyone there's no good reason for it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's just continuing to drive the negativity that we see in the Twitterverse. That you want to talk about draining a swamp. Yeah, that's big time. That's the biggest swamp I think on the interwebs, in my opinion. Yeah. And you spoke about Giuliani a little while ago, and he's just comic relief right now. Oh man, I mean he really is, and I love Rudy because he's a Yankee fan, but. Other than that, I didn't know New York City politics or anything like that. But he actually scolded President Trump. Yeah.
So we talked about this in the last show, that kind of in a roundabout way where Trump was kind of popping off and getting himself into the weeds on these legal matters, and Ben Shapiro had come out and said that he'd be well served to, focus on his job and let his lawyers handle the legal stuff.
Really?
And yeah,
it's so hard to believe.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
we covered that last week.
We did. That was our last week topic, and now since then, so the follow up to that is that Giuliani has come out and told Trump to kind of pump the brakes on that and let the legal counsel handle all this stuff with Cohen and all that kind of garbage, and don't try to get yourself off in the weeds on that stuff.
And I almost think that empowers him more to go to the keyboard.
Yep. Yeah.
I really do. It's like the petulant child that is told not to touch the hot burner.
Yep.
And says, well, because I don't know how hot it is, I'm going to figure it out, and he just plants his hand on it. Or the candy jar, or whatever it may be. The more you tell them not to do it, the worse that they want to do it.
Yep.
And that's not going to, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Not at all.
He's not going to flip it and all go, Rudy, Ben, why don't you come to the White House and help me out with this on how I should maybe handle some of these things?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. So, well, right now it's about time. We're going to drop in a promo for the next Platinum Moms podcast that will be coming up on Wednesday. I don't know do you have any idea what they're going to talk about?
No, it's going to be a surprise. I guess we'll find out.
We will find out in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are back. 2320, please.
Cool.
Okay, well, we've got the trifecta now, and our first story, which I think is one that is incredibly important to this nation, because this person served incredibly selflessly and was just a great all-around man. That would be John McCain, who unfortunately passed away from brain cancer on Saturday.
Yeah. Just a quick backstory. I'm sure everybody knows by now that he'd been fighting brain cancer for some time, and he announced on Friday his office and issued a statement saying that he was going to be discontinuing treatment, and then one day later he passed away. So he was obviously right near the end at that point when they issued that statement. A couple different topics, a couple different things to note about this. One interesting and coincidental factoid is he died 9 years to the day exactly after Ted Kennedy died of the exact same brain tumor.
Really?
Yeah.
Glioblastoma.
Yep. So that was kind of an interesting fact. The other thing that kind of irked me this morning, and Will and I had talked about that too, is the whole flag at half-staff thing with the White House. Is federal policy, federal code, whatever you want to call it, when diplomats or congressmen or heads of state, whatever, when they pass away, policy is to lower the flag to half-staff for 2 days, but it's gone beyond that in all recent times. Is that now kind of the standard unspoken protocol is that you leave it lowered until their funeral.
Oh, okay.
So which usually takes about a week, roughly. So you usually have the flags lowered for a week until their funeral. And so we all know that Trump has had plenty of dust-ups with McCain in the past, and they don't get along. And so kind of what I look at as a kind of a childish slap in the face is that after the 2 days, Trump ordered the flag back up and didn't leave it down until his funeral, in spite of all the other buildings in D.C., the Capitol building, Supreme Court, everybody else has left their flags lowered to half-staff.
Really?
Except Trump ordered the White House back up.
Wow.
So that's pretty childish.
We talk about petulant children.
Yep.
And I think the most telling of it all is the fact that Trump won't be in his funeral.
Yep.
Or at his funeral.
Will not attend. Yeah.
And he's going to have President Obama and Bush are both going to be delivering eulogies. And, I think that right there is a testament to him as a man. That he can have people that are pretty darn far away on the political spectrum both understand that politics are such a small part of life, and that we can come together for tragedy and put that stuff to the side. Unfortunately, the sitting president can't.
Yeah.
But I don't think they actually invited him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't.
From what I've read, there was no sign from them that they were going to invite him or that they wanted him there. I've read and I've seen on television that it was more along the lines that Trump wasn't going to go. but I think that they just flat out don't want him there.
Right. Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting. Do we know the date of his funeral?
He's going to lie in state at the Arizona State Capitol for a few days, and then they're going to fly him to D.C. and he'll lie in state in the Capitol building in Washington D.C. for a few days, and then the funeral after that. So I think they said like Friday or Saturday. I think it will be the funeral. Yeah.
And he's not going to be laid to rest next to his grandfather and father, I believe. He'll be laid to rest next to his best friend.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
Yeah, I read that earlier today, and that it wasn't a big deal, but I guess the family kind of has a plot together. But he had decided at Arlington he was going to be laid to rest next to his best friend. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
When I was listening to Dan Patrick this morning, he was replaying some of his, because he joined Dan 2 or 3 times, and Dan was kind of reflecting back on those, and how one time Dan tried to give him some swag from the show, and McCain wouldn't take it. He gave him a check for $150 to purchase, I think it was a couple shirts and a hat or something like that, but Dan never cashed it. He kept the check, and they have it in the man cave on the side of the Danettes there, and Dan never wanted to. He knew that was it was an important thing to get a check from somebody like McCain.
Yeah.
And so he kept that, but he talked about, he brought one of the clips that he brought back was when they talked about when he was a prisoner of war, and because he spent 3 years in, he was spent 5 years in as a prisoner of war, but 3 of it, I believe, was in solitary confinement.
That's right, yeah.
And he said one of the things that I took away from it that was so interesting was that when new prisoners would come in, they wouldn't talk about the war or anything like that. They would ask them sports-related questions. Who won the Super Bowl? Who was in the World Series? Things like that. And I found that incredible. That just shows you the bridge that can be crossed with sports and things like that, and how unimportant politics can be when you get down to the core human nature of people. It's things like that bring them together.
Yeah.
And they were doing Morse code with the guy. He did Morse code, or I think it was Morse code, the guy that was in the cell next to him, and they would tap. And he said they were so good at it, they could tap fast enough that it was almost like they were talking. They could understand it. So, but yeah, that's John McCain dead at 81. But hell of a man. Somebody that we can, he's the type of person that you really want to have as a mentor and somebody to look up to. So that's incredibly sad, and that is a nasty brain tumor.
Yeah.
Nasty. It spreads and it's no good. So number 2 here in the old trifecta is newspapers have really been rallying lately around the whole fake news accusations regarding President Trump. And I brought this one up to Wes last week. This was going to be my crunch time on Thursday, but I said, no, let's expand on this a little bit and get kind of both of our takes on it. So it's something that we both have a lot of interest in, that's for sure.
Yeah, so just some backstory on this. Everybody knows that Trump loves to use the term fake news, and he slams a lot of the mainstream media and calls them fake news at every chance he gets. So Boston Globe, the newspaper, took it upon themselves to basically start a campaign back against him and retaliate by, just calling him out, basically was calling him out.
Yeah.
And they were able to get a bunch of newspapers to band together with the Boston Globe and all issue basically like a joint statement, slamming Trump. And in all, there were about 300 news outlets that joined up with the Boston Globe to issue this statement back at Trump. And before Will jumps in with what he's got, I just want to. There was one kind of a tie-in. It was actually an op-ed in one of our local newspapers that a intern had written for the paper, and I guess it just goes to show you, which is kind of a scary thing, what they're teaching in college at the journalism level and teaching you how to be a supposed journalist.
Big J.
Yeah, and this intern wrote in the op-ed basically slamming Trump for, talking down and belittling the media and calling them fake news. And he said that it's the media's job or a journalist's job to take the facts of a given instance and basically summarize them and, boil it down and send that back out to the public. So he's basically saying it's the journalist's job to summarize an event and then let you know that summary. But that obviously leads itself up to all sorts of slant, because with the way you summarize it may not be straight up. You're going to summarize it based on your own, slant on things. So the fact that he thinks it's his job to gather the facts for you and then boil it down and regurgitate what he wants you to hear, and that you need to take that as the fact, that's a huge issue for me. And sadly, I wasn't surprised to see that coming from the media, because I think you look at it across the board, no matter what network you look at, they're leaning right, left, whatever. There's bias everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact that this is a college intern coming right out of college, or still in college, saying that he believes it's his job to disseminate the news and
homogenize
and basically he'll do the thinking for you and he'll tell you what he's found out, kind of thing. And that's not journalism. You should be laying out just the raw facts and let the public decide.
Absolutely. Let me figure out whether I want to hear. That's why I use the word homogenizes, because homogenizes because you're removing large portions of the organisms inside of milk, and in this you're removing large portions of the news or the facts, and you're reducing it down to what you believe the people should hear. But we need to hear those nasty things that could be part of the facts, and we need to know what every part of the story is so that we can form our own opinion rather than somebody else forming it for us.
Yeah, and to touch on what you just said, is that if you think something is insignificant, so you leave that fact out in your summary, that may not be an insignificant fact to somebody else. That may be important. So for you to try to pick and choose in what you think is important and then only broadcast your little cherry picking of stuff, that's extremely dangerous.
Absolutely. And it's something that, as you and I sit here and we're giving opinions. We try to give, and that's why we kind of have the show set up the way we do. I'll introduce a story, you'll give some backstory on it, and then we give opinions of it. And that's why we put a show summary up. So if you want to go out there, you can see kind of a rundown on what we did, but you can go out there and get more facts on it. We're giving you our opinions on it. We're not stating things as fact. In fact, most of the time I'll say, hey, this is our opinion. I know when we first started doing this, I ran rampant with that, way too much. But that's what we do. A newspaper job, the big J, is supposed to deliver the facts to us. News stands for Northeast, West, South. It's supposed to include everything so that when you read it, you can form your own opinion. And I think that as we, and I'll kind of segue into what I wanted to talk about with this, which is the sister paper to the one you're talking about, is that we see in this 24-hour news cycle, more and more people think that it's important to get their opinion out there because it delivers clicks, it delivers instant gratification, it gives them that dopamine hit that we've talked about so many times when you get that like, when you get that retweet, anything like that. And it doesn't matter, I almost think that if it's negative or positive, people still want it. They want that hit. They want people to engage them. They, that tweet I was talking about earlier to Dana Loesch, they want to have incendiary things like that out there so that, you should have seen the amount, there was over 400 replies to that one tweet. And and she didn't reply to any of it.
Right.
You see that so often, and it's becoming more and more prevalent every day, I think. And I don't see it ending anytime soon. Yeah. But my issue is, again, I'm going to go after the media, and exactly what you said. It is an op-ed in the local newspaper, Kamaswashubula Post-Record. Was she the editor-in-chief? Managing editor came out and calling fake news propaganda and that they're fighting it and all these things. So what does she do? She gives one giant fact that completely skews the entire op-ed in her favor, obviously, and it's that 2/3 of Republicans support Trump. and it's based on am I saying it right? Quinnipiac?
Yep.
Quinnipiac poll, Quinnipiac University poll that I believe they do these weekly. So doesn't give any context to it though. And that's a huge issue. How important is it that, when we say homogenize, that's what these facts, they provide us, is that context that we need to form our opinions. And so the big thing was that's what she framed, was that 2/3 of Republicans or 2-to-1 Republicans think that Trump is doing a good job. Well, first and foremost, I want to know that there was how many people? 1,100 people, I believe, were polled. Now, we have 350 million people, give or take, in this country. I don't know that 1,100 people are giving us, and I know they try to go to different types of demographics and things like that. 1,100 people is really hard to find a solid footing for a poll, I think.
Right.
I just can't see that is a great representation of what the overall nation is feeling. Maybe if you had 11,000 or 11 million, I could get behind it. But the big thing was that I took away from it is that voters disapprove, and I'm quoting the poll here. Voters actually disapprove 54 to 41%. I'm quoting them, of the job Trump is doing as president, including 48% who disapprove strongly. Another 30% approve strongly. Well, that's the flip. That's completely sideways from what she said. And I know she's framing this around Republicans, but I don't know that Trump is identified as a Republican to you and I.
Right.
I know we kind of say we're libertarians, and we are, but if we're going to go after the two big parties, we would probably identify more as Republicans than we would Democrats.
Right.
And so I think that framing it that way is dangerous. I think that presenting that in an op-ed in the newspaper and not giving any other context, like I said, and to say these things and to whip up the fervor. Again, she's going after propaganda, but in my opinion, there we go, all she's doing is she's increasing the propaganda, because when you don't give us the context and they just read this one newspaper, and I encourage folks, and I'll put the link to it in the show notes tomorrow, I encourage you to go read these things. I'll put both the Quinnipiac University poll and this op-ed so that you can go out there and you can see exactly what this story should have in it. It drives me crazy. When I read this, I said to myself, I'm like, there has got to be more to this story. And there was no mention of where I could find this poll. She just said that this is the poll. I had to go search it. There was no link in here or anything like that. I think that it's dangerous for anyone to, again, she took the facts, boiled them down, and delivered them to us completely devoid of the entire story.
Right.
And that just drives me bananas.
Yeah.
And I'll quit banging on it because it's just gets my blood boiling. But
Yeah.
It's not that I agree or disagree. It's that I want everyone to have the whole story. I think the fake news thing, my dad and I were talking about this yesterday. The two words fake news, I think, sounds so carnival to me.
Yeah.
It's a joke. And I wish there was a more, I don't want to say diplomatic, I wish it was just more grown up way to say it. It just kind of sounds like going nanny nanny poo poo when somebody says that.
And bottom line is that, of course, everybody's going to have opinions on things, and that's fine. And when it comes to the news networks have opinion shows within. Like you talk about Fox, you talk about like Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity. Those are opinion shows, so of course you're going to get their opinion. But when you look at the primetime news lineup, when there's anchors sitting at the desk and they're supposed to be reporting the news, even then, it's really hard to get straight news on what is supposed to be a news show, completely separate from an opinion show.
And then now
the lines get blurred.
It's so blurred now. I mean, like you say, Hannity is just a mouthpiece for Trump. And whether that's, but we know what he is. He knows that he has a fervent base that is going to follow him, and he's in this for one thing: money.
Yep.
And that's what so many people forget. I don't care if it's Alex Jones and InfoWars. He's in it for money. To sell you his power pills or whatever the hell he's got. That's the craziest thing. That guy's sitting there talking about conspiracy theories, and then he stops and he's like, buy my, pump up pills and all this crap. It's like, what? How the hell did you get into that, you crazy? Anyway, that's my opinion. But I just, again, the lines are being blurred more and more, especially with social media. And again, I continue to go after that. But I just want to see somebody, Fox News, fair and balanced, my ass. And CNN, fair and balanced and delivering the facts, my ass. Yeah. Not at all. Yeah. It's dang near. Oh, Steve just said chemtrails.
Alex Jones.
Oh my gosh, the whole chemtrail thing. I don't know. I just we can't figure out how to keep fish in the river, and we can't figure out how to get an interchange on the freeway. But they're controlling our minds. If they were controlling our minds, would we all be so batshit crazy? I don't think so. We'd all be zombies.
Yep.
We'd all be like North Korea, just sitting there going, yes, you are the great one. You are the best. And based on this poll, 2-1, people don't approve. So right. The chemtrails are not working. They got to find some new chemicals to control the weather with and us. So number 3 here in the we'll quit on that one because I think we could do about 18 shows in a row.
Probably so. Yep.
And that's why I wanted to expand it from just crunch time because I think we just did about 10 minutes on it. So number 3 here, the final one in the trifecta is James Comey's finding himself in the swamp, and the waters are rising around him.
Yeah, it just seems like every day there's something new coming out in regards to what Comey did or didn't do and what he was supposed to do in his job scope. This most recent story was regarding the emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop, and those of you who don't know, I knew I was going to elicit a laugh. Those of you who don't know, Anthony Weiner is the husband, or was the husband, of Huma Abedin, who was the right-hand woman, the top assistant to Hillary Clinton. And during the whole course of the Hillary email investigation into her private server, they discovered that on Anthony Weiner's laptop had a whole bunch of sensitive info that Huma was actually, his wife, Huma Abedin, was using his laptop to communicate with Hillary on this unsecured server. So he, in turn, was having a lot of this Hillary email stuff on his personal laptop. Yeah. And so this was known towards the end of the investigation. This was found out. And so the FBI confiscated his laptop and was going to search through everything and take a look at stuff.
Not so much.
Not so much. Comey, and this is where the water's getting muddy, Comey testified to this on Capitol Hill, so he is under oath as having said this stuff. He's saying that they use a sophisticated software program to read all the emails electronically and scan for keywords and classified stuff. And it turns out that software program didn't exactly work like it was supposed to. So the problem is that there were 694,000 emails on Anthony Weiner's computer in his database, 694,000 emails, and this piece of software that was supposed to scan them all kind of flaked out and only ended up examining 3,077. So they looked at 3,000 out of 694,000 emails and then declared everything was okay, basically.
It was all good.
Yeah, and so obviously that's a huge deal. And then now after the fact, there have been FOIA requests, the Freedom of Information Act requests to examine these emails by private third-party investigators. And of course, when they get them, they're heavily redacted. But they say based on just the emails that they have gotten, based on the amount of redactions and what you can kind of read between the lines, there's obviously sensitive info in there. And so they said it's plain as day, and for Comey to say that they examined everything and it's all good, that obviously is a big fat lie. And the fact that he said all this under oath is perjury, is a big problem. And the other very interesting part, and one that I had never really heard of before, and one that is to say I didn't know about it being a law, and I haven't heard any media talk about it either, is that the law requires that when any intelligence agency, i.e. the FBI, NSA, whoever, whenever they find something like this where there is sensitive information that could have been compromised, that on an unsecure server, unsecure network that could have been compromised, they're supposed to hand it off to another agency to double check on things. So the FBI, then they are required by law to turn it over to, let's say, the NSA or somebody else, saying, hey, here's what we found, double check our work and see if you found something that we missed.
Make sure
that is the law, is that somebody else, when you have something that's been compromised, a secondary agency needs to double check your work to see if there's something that you missed along the way. And that never happened. Comey never turned anything over to a secondary agency for follow-up examination.
That's incredible. It's not hard to believe,
right?
The biggest thing that I took away from it was that he testified that the agents spent countless hours going over all these emails. 694,000 emails is not going to take, a couple of days to get through. And he tried to make it sound like they went after it. It sounds like they spent a grand total of about 24 hours, and I believe 3 agents.
It was, and I read it was 3 agents, like on a 15 or 16 hour shift.
Okay, so even shorter.
With the help of this software that didn't work.
What was there software Control F, and they were just looking for Hillary?
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, what was it or was it just Control Alt Delete for 670,000 of them, or however many? I can't do the math off the top of my head, but that's what it sounds like. And with the cover-up, it's going to sink him. If they would have just done their dang job, and again, we don't know everything, it's not out yet, but it's looking like, these things are going to come back and bite them in the ass because they didn't do what they said they did. If you didn't do what you said, I hadn't seen that. So that is a huge problem. That is one there's a paper trail somewhere of them not turning it over. It's just like a police agency turning it over to another jurisdiction, whether it's an investigation or whatever it may be, so that the work that is done is verified by an independent third party that doesn't have their fingers in the pie.
Right.
And again, that doesn't occur. And so, are they going to haul his ass back out in front of Congress, or are they just going to ring him up on charges? Who knows? This is going to be in the follow-up flashback, I'm sure, for the next 2 to 3 months, if not years, because it's not going to end. And I'm sure more and more information is going to come out.
Right, and as this stuff continues to trickle out, like you said, we're going to, I'm sure, find more and more out bit by bit. And I would certainly hope that they would haul him back in front of Congress. Not that that would necessarily do anything. Ultimately, he needs to be rung up on some charges because you've got to set an example at this point. This is the head, or was the head of the FBI. It's basically dereliction of duty right down the board. He screwed up on so much stuff, and not only did he mess up on stuff and then lie about it to try to cover up what he didn't do or what he said he did, but then the stuff like I just talked about is where he is required by law to hand stuff over to a secondary agency to have them double check his work. He just bypassed that whole thing. So not only is he doing stuff and lying about what he did, then he is flat out not doing other stuff that is required by law. So it's just garbage all the way through.
And again, ego is what takes all these guys down, and ego is what put him at odds with Trump.
Right.
And that's, both of them have ginormous ones, and both of them could end up, it costing them jobs someday. I don't know if it will Trump, but Comey already cost him his job. So, yeah. And it could cost him because of this even more.
Yeah.
So, well, that does it for the trifecta. You got a quick crunch time? I know we're under a little bit of a time crunch for you. So.
No, I don't. Nothing that.
I've got a quick one.
Yeah, do it.
I'm gonna say that my son gets to play football now, and he gets to play tackle football, and I'm actually hoping that I'm going to get to coach him. And I'm very excited about the possible opportunity of having a positive impact on these kids and hoping to give them the same thing that a coach had, the impact he had on me, and that's John Carver at Washburn.
Yeah, Mr. Carver.
Mr. Carver had probably, and Mr. Washburn had the most profound impacts on my youth. And I want to try to give back to kids in the same way that they gave to me. Selfless, unbelievable men that put the team and put us as kids in front of their own needs. And so I'm really hoping, and I hope other people can, take that opportunity. I've always been one that has never been excited about teaching people that don't want to be taught, But kids that are out for football they're making that effort to get out there, and I really hope that I get that opportunity.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
So, anyway, with that has been Kinetic Chaos Podcast number 43. We thank everyone for watching us on Facebook Live. We've had pretty good viewership here this afternoon. We actually weren't going to go on Facebook Live, and Wes talked me into it. So I'm very glad of that. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. We'll have more coming up here from the Secret Underground Bunker soon. So you got anything else?
I got nothing.
You got nothing?
Yeah.
We are ready to rock and roll. Thank you guys again. We will see you soon.
See you in a few days.
We go. Everyone on Facebook Live, thank you again for watching. We appreciate it. We hopefully the sound, we'll have to go back and hear how it sounded.
That echoiness in the room.
The microphones have really, really good compression on them to keep that down, but the cameras, the iPhones do not. We're gonna possibly look at some different cameras here in the near future so that we can do Facebook Live and YouTube Live. That's the big one that we're gonna start actually probably broadcasting on both channels. Possibly this Thursday.
Yeah.
So depending on the weather, I want to see how that sets up and getting another tripod. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go back to the table with the bricks and all that shit. So stuff. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. We will see you on Thursday.
Have a good one.
Bye.